Texas has a reputation for freedom, but what does that actually mean? As always, thank you for checking out our newest video here on living in Tyler, Texas. If you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button. That way you get notified of all of our newest videos as they come out. Additionally, we want to remind you that we are your friend in real estate. So if you've been thinking about making a move to East Texas, please don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to help you make East Texas your home. We also have a great Facebook group called Moving to East Texas. It's a great way to connect with other people who are making or who have made the move to East Texas, and it can be a great place to get information and connect with others as well. All right, so one of the reasons people pick Texas is all the freedom and less restriction on your life, your home, all that kind of stuff. So today we're going to get into 7 different things that make Texas a great place to call home. All right, so first up is going to be land, home use, etc. So one of the benefits of living in Texas, especially outside of the city limits, are the limited restrictions that you have in order to act on your property, whether it has to do with your home and adding on to it, the use case, having different things going on at the property, things like that. There are very few restrictions within the counties of East Texas. And that's a big distinction from the city, because if you live within a municipality, there are going to be more guidelines and things like that that are going to limit what you can do with the property. But once you move out of the municipality, you've got a lot of freedom and less restriction on your home. So an instance, to give you an example of this limited restriction and use and things like that. If you buy 10 acres outside the city, you're going to be able to do generally whatever you want with that property as long as no deed restrictions exist. Now that can mean having chickens, that can mean having cows, horses. You can put your shop in front of the house. You can put it to the right of the house. You can add on to your existing house with limited requirement or permitting needed from the county. Now that's not to say if you use contractors that they're not going to build it to the same requirements and things like that, but generally the county is not going to have much oversight of your property, giving you freedom to kind of create what it is you envision for the property. Some of the things that I've heard other people talk about, whether it be from California or Michigan or states that, generally exert more control over the people and the homeowners, things with new install of hot water heater, new install of various things within the home have to be permitted and approved by the county. One, that can cost time, which is probably the biggest cost, but additionally it's going to cost more money. A lot of times. Here, that's not a thing. The plumber who installs the hot water heater, the electrician who comes and does things to update the panel or the lines and things like that are going to do it based on what is appropriate and safe. However, there's not going to be any additional county oversight in order to make sure the job is done and allow you to occupy the home. I had another client tell me about once they had a pond that they tried to fill in Michigan, and the county got all over them about it because of certain animals, insects, I don't know, different things that they could be harming their ecosystem. Here, you have a pond you don't want to fill it up. You want to make a pond, dig it up, find water to fill it up with. It's your land, you can do what you want. There's not much concern for how you operate and effectively use your land here in East Texas. Number 2 is going to be no state income tax. Now, most of you are probably pretty familiar with that if you're moving here, that you don't have to pay an income tax to the state of Texas. Now, that comes with a caveat. Obviously, our property taxes are a little bit higher here because the state does have to generate and raise revenue in order to function. Sometimes the property tax is going to be a better trade-off versus the income tax, depending on the value of your property and things of that nature. So there is some benefit to having no income tax generally, and is a big appeal for a lot of people to move to East Texas. In addition, there is no state property tax. All the property taxes are levied individually by the county, kind of probably keeping that number a little bit lower than if there was an entire state income tax that was on top of the county income tax. Now, when people call me about making a move to East Texas, I don't tell them you're going to save a fortune in taxes. I give them the whole picture and explain there is some offset to that because our property taxes are in fact higher here than they are in other states. But for certain earners and things like that, that break in income tax is going to be more significant than what you're paying in property tax. Are you thinking about making a move to Tyler, Texas? If so, we've developed the perfect relocation guide to save you hours of research. It's going gonna have everything from the best employers, top hospitals, and boatloads of other things that are gonna make the transition to moving to Tyler, Texas pretty seamless. The best part is it's totally free. We've got it linked down below, so please check it out. Hope it helps. Number 3 is the Texas Homestead Advantage. Now, while our taxes are higher, the government is actively working to reduce that burden on a lot of people. As of last year, Texas voters voted to increase the exemption amount to $140,000 off the taxable value to the school district. So what that means is if your property is taxed at $300,000, it's only going to be taxed at $160,000 for your ISD school tax. Now, that is not the only tax that you're going to pay, but it is the biggest bulk of your property taxes in your property tax bills. So getting that significant reduction is going to save you a good bit of money on your property taxes annually. So it's very important that you file your homestead, you get that credit, and reduce your taxable value. In addition to the homestead exemption amount, when you have the homestead exemption in place, it puts a cap on how much they can raise the property value. Now, that was very valuable during the COVID times where homes, maybe in some instances within the county doubled, even more so by having a 10% cap. They could not exceed that 10% annually to catch up with real market value. So in an market upswing, you're going to have significant benefit to kind of protect that lower value of when you bought the property, keeping your taxable number down. So with Texas homestead laws, there's also a good bit of creditor protection. And what that means is generally Texas has pretty strong laws protecting a forced sale upon people's homestead. Now, there are exceptions with mortgages, taxes, things like that, but generally speaking, it is harder to foreclose on a homesteaded property, whether it be existing liens through like a hospital, IRS, things of that nature. It's going to be tough for them to foreclose on the property based on other burdens, debts, things of that nature, which is not going to be the same in every state. Texas does a good job protecting your homestead and ensuring that you're able to keep it despite the circumstances that may present themselves. So a Texas rural homestead can encompass up to 200 acres for a family, 100 acres for a single person, and then with an urban environment, it can encompass up to 10 acres. So you can protect the entirety of your property up to those amounts through the homestead laws and protections and things like that. Now, what we'll see a lot of times though is they will reduce their homestead on a larger parcel, and they will use what's an ag exemption on the larger parcel to kind of protect and lower those taxable values even more. So if you have an ag exemption on your property, it is actually probably a more significant savings than what you're going to get through a homestead property. In Texas, the homestead exemption isn't just to reduce your taxes, it's built deeply into Texas law to protect your home. Now, again, I'm a realtor, not a CPA or attorney, so this is just kind of a framework to understand how the homestead exemptions and protections work here in Texas. Number 4, agriculture and ranching freedom in Texas. Did you know that Texas actually voted to include farming and ranching rights into the Texas state constitution? In 2023, Texas voted to protect and create within Article 1, Section 36 of its Bill of Rights to include protection for farming, ranching, timber, horticulture, and wildlife management. So you have the freedom and protections. There's obviously some specifics and caveats to that within those Bill of Rights, but you're generally protected to produce and actively work your property in a business manner to include those types of activities. For those of you who are thinking about making a move to Tyler, Texas, I want to know where you're coming from and the main reason that you're actually leaving the area that you're currently in. So please leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear. Number 5 are Texas gun laws, and anytime you associate Texas, you definitely think farm and ranch and guns. In fact, Texas actually enacted permitless carry in 2021. Texas law generally allows anybody over the age of 21 who is also not prohibited federally from carrying a gun to, in fact, carry a handgun without obtaining a license to carry permit within the state. Now, permitless does not mean ruleless. There are obviously prohibited locations and circumstances in which you cannot have a gun. Certain buildings, places of that nature can restrict the use of firearms being carried on the property, and those are still in effect law. So you can't just bring it into a property that does not allow it. Additionally, private property owners could restrict the use or carry of weapons on private property, generally making certain businesses or things like that, making it unlawful to carry them. Places like schools, public polling places, other public places of concern in that nature that would not typically allow it. Those are places that are still going to have those same restrictions. But if you're driving down the street, things of that nature, you don't have to have a license to carry the handgun. However, there still is a license to carry, which is probably a good course and license to still have if you plan to carry a handgun. Just informing you of those places to be more aware of where you cannot carry it, how you disclose that you have it, things of that nature that will make you much more aware of the scenarios and circumstances on how to carry your handgun. So whether you love or hate that law, it doesn't really matter. It is legal to carry a handgun here in Texas without a permit, and that's a big difference than a lot of states. Number 6, you can legally drive up to 85 miles an hour. How fast do you think the fastest speed limit is in America? Well, in Texas, it is up to 85 miles an hour. So it's not 85 miles an hour everywhere. We have plenty of speed limit signs posted in different areas. Typically, your highways and interstates are going to be up to 75 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour in certain circumstances that would apply, up to 85 miles an hour on a highway designated to accommodate it when traffic and engineering study determines that the speed is safe and reasonable. So there are a few places, it is not widespread that you can drive 85 miles an hour, but it does have roads and places in Texas that you can go that speed. State Highway 130 near Austin is one of the more famous areas that you can drive up to 85 miles an hour. And that doesn't mean driving 85 with a 70 mile an hour speed limit sign posted. The sign actually says 85 miles an hour. So it is a unique distinction just to assume that you can get away with driving it when the posted speed is less. You will in fact actually see a posted 85 mile an hour speed limit sign. Hey guys, it's Tyler Martin here, part of the Living in Tyler, Texas team. While I love making these videos, I love helping families make East Texas their home even more. As your local real estate agent here, we want to remind you that we are your friend in real estate and helping you make the transition to East Texas. Whether it's next week, next month, a year from now, it doesn't matter. We would love to be a part of the process in helping make East Texas your home. So if you've been thinking about making the move or just have questions or thoughts or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. We've got all our information here on the screen, as well in the description below and in the banner on our page. So you can reach us by text, phone, email, it doesn't matter. We would love to help you make the journey to East Texas. Number 7, Texans have a constitutional right to access Gulf Coast beaches. In Texas, Gulf Coast access is not just customary, it is in fact a constitutional right. Texas's Open Beach Act protects access to publicly owned beaches. The public has ingress and egress access to all Texas public beaches, meaning that properties in between those cannot be restrictive to limit your access or cut out, your way to get into a public beach. Now, this doesn't mean every piece of waterfront is accessible. There still are private beaches that are owned along the Gulf Coast, but all those publicly owned properties are fully accessible to people. And something that is unique to our Gulf Coast that varies from other places like Alabama, Florida, and things like that, where they're very protective of the dunes and things like that. Texas doesn't have those same environmental protections, so it does allow you a little bit more use and freedom within these public access beaches. You'll see a lot of places down south along the coast where people actually drive on the beach, which is not a sight you would see in Alabama or Florida or things like that. Now, I'm sure there is something that is different with our sand and our beach types that allow this type of activity to happen that they don't allow to happen at the other places, but generally your Texas public beaches are fully accessible for people. And that's the theme here in Texas. You've got lots of freedoms, you've got lots of choices, and most importantly, if you're looking to move to Texas, you're likely excited about the freedom, lack of restriction to operate your land and your property as you see fit. In other states, that's not how it works. You've got tons of regulations, rules, and things that can make it more difficult to do, more timely, more costly, all of those things. Texas has worked hard to allow the freedom to live your life and have your property function as you want. And as always, thank you for checking out our latest video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click like if you found this video helpful. Any Texans in the comment, let me know what restrictions, or rather freedoms, I left out of the video that you think are important for people making a move to East Texas and that they should know. If you haven't already, make sure that you connect with us through our Facebook group, Moving to East Texas. It's a great resource to connect with others. Additionally, we want to remind you that we are your friend in real estate. So if you're thinking about making a move to East Texas, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to connect with you and make East Texas your home.